Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 11th session of Students Learning Seminar. Today, we'll have a talk by Sanchayan Bhoval from BMed Honors First Year. He will be presenting an unconventional approach to groups. Sanchayan, please start.
So, hello everyone. So, today I will be presenting a lecture on an unconventional approach to groups. So, groups are some algebraic structures. They are the fundamental part of modern algebra, namely abstract algebra. They recur throughout the domain of science, not only mathematics, but throughout science. The term group was coined by Galois. Being an abstract structure, it becomes a bit difficult for beginners to understand groups. When I started, I also felt difficulty. So in this lecture, we'll try to take a little easier path instead of going to rigorous definition. The whole lecture will not, I will try to keep it as less rigorous as possible. So let's start. So first of all, to give motivation, I will carry out 3 set of experiments. So firstly, I have this cube. This is a cube actually. And this a triangle with 3 labeled nodes and 6 balls. So what I will do is I will rotate and revolve this cube in many directions and ultimately bring it to the same position. So this is our first experiment. And in the second one, I will rotate this triangle by 120 degree. So what happens is the triangle almost remains same except the nodes have changed. So now 2 is at the top and 3 is at the left and 1 is at the right. Now I will rotate this again. It also remains a triangle. Now 3 is at the top, 1 is at the left and 2 is at the right. So I will rotate this 120 degree again and it comes back to its original position. That is 1, 2 and 3. So this was our second one. So and the third one is I will move 3 to 6 and 6 to 3's position. And similarly, I will carry out more such rearrangements. I will move 1 to 2's position, 2 to 4's position, and 4 to 1's position. And I will do the same kind of rearrangement again. I mean, I will move the second one, whatever it is in, whatever the ball is in second place, I will move that to the 4th place, and I will move 2 to 1st place, and 4 back to 2's place. Now, instead of doing this again, I will move 6 to 3's position again and 3 to 6 position. So it moves there. And I will now move 4 to 1's position, 2 to 4's position, and 1 back to its original place. So ultimately, this is our resultant structure. So now why I am suddenly doing such experiments? So 2 questions arises. So first of all, what is common? What is common in these experiments? And second is, what is the need? Why we are doing such experiments? So first of all, let us look at what is common. So I am carrying out n number of steps. I am naming this F1, F2, dot, 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 Fn. And after carrying out n number of steps, I call this total step, whatever I have carried out, as F. So this is the initial position of our cube. This was the initial position. And this was our final position. So just look at them. They are totally same. So what are you doing? We are applying F1, F2, F2 to Fn to this structure, and I'm getting back this structure. So there is some sort of symmetry between the initial and the final position. And not only for this cube, this symmetry is present in all the experiments we carried out. Just look at these 6 balls. It remains the initial and the final position is still same. And even for the triangle. So this study of symmetry, this study of patterns and symmetry is studied through group theory to give it an algebraic structure. So this is how group theory was motivated. So let's now look at what is the need of group theory. So Now we encounter symmetry everywhere. So hence group theory can be used wherever we see some pattern or symmetry. For example, this Rubik's Cube. This Rubik's Cube can also be solved through group theory. Although the Rubik's Cube solvers don't use group theory because that would take a longer time, obviously. Uh, but it can be used to solve it. And it gives an elegant manner to solve it. So even the numbers have some pattern. So it can be used in number theory also. Even this equation, for example, for quadratic equation, we have Sridharacharya formula. For cubic equations, we have Cardan's method, and for fourth degree polynomial also there is some method to find the roots of the polynomial. However, there is no such method for quintic or more than 5 degree polynomials. So actually, we can't find them, and it can be proved through group theory. So again, we find group theory, and also in physics, uh, there are applications of group theory, like Raman effect uses group theory, some sort of group theory. So whenever we encounter symmetry, we encounter group theory. So it's a very nice topic to study. So now these two questions are done, and now we'll go on to construct groups. So I'll try to share on my video. Hope you can see. So I have these 3 balls. I don't have balls here, so I've made 3 cards. So these are 3 cards, red, green, and blue. And what I will do is I will take this configuration and I will do nothing. So it remains same. And I call.
Sanjay, can you? We cannot see both your video and
Oh.
Screen at the same time. So
Oh.
can you just stop screen sharing and share the video, and then you can start again.
Okay. Now it's visible, I guess.
Yes.
Now if I screen share, can you see it? Actually, I wanted the screen.
So the issue is that your photo is very small, so we can't show what you're
Oh,
showing.
okay. Anyway, so this is the initial configuration: red, green, and blue. So I'll take this configuration and I will keep it same, and I will do nothing on it. And I am applying some step to it, and that step is just doing nothing, and I call that step I, or identity. So I will now apply another step. Now the second step is I will move blue ball here and red ball to the second place and green, which was in the middle, to the third place. So now the configuration becomes blue, red, and then green. So, and I will call this step, whatever we have applied, as sigma. Now I will apply this same step again. I mean, I will move this green to the first place, blue to the second one, and red to the third place. So basically what we are doing, what we are applying sigma twice. So I will name this step sigma square. This is not the same square as we do to square 4, not like that. This is just a notation to denote that we are applying sigma twice. Now I will move back to the original configuration, that is red, green, and blue. And now I will apply another step, that is I will move green to blue's position and blue to green's position. Now the configuration looks like this, and I will call this step, just swapping these last two, as tau. So we have encountered 4 steps. now I will take another step. That is, I will first apply tau like this. It was like this in the initial condition, and I will apply tau to get this. Now I will apply sigma. That is, I will move green to here, yeah, red to second, and blue to the third one. And now my configuration turns out to be green, red, and blue. And I will call this step sigma tau. Why? Because we are applying tau first, then sigma. So we will call this step sigma tau. Now I will again move back to the original position, that is red, green, and blue. Now instead of applying tau first, I will apply sigma first. That is, I will move uh, blue here, yeah, red to the second place, and green to the third place. Now I will apply tau. That is, I will swap the last two. So the configuration becomes blue, green, and red. So basically what we are doing, we are permutating this three balls or these three cards. Again, go back to screen sharing. I hope you can see that. Now, these were our steps: sigma, sigma square, tau, sigma tau, and tau sigma. So basically what we did, we carried out the permutation or rearrangement of three distinct balls. So now we already know there can't be more than 6 permutations because 3 factorial is 6. So we have listed all kind of steps that we could have taken in the initial configuration. And I call this set as G. And now what we're doing, if I apply this individually, I mean I to this, it keeps same, sigma to this, it becomes this, and likewise for this other one. And we already know these are known as permutations. So this is the same kind of experiment we did in the second slide. Instead of 6, just we have 3. It makes it bit easier because 6 factorial is too much number. So now I will try to see the observations that we made in the previous experiment. So yeah, we make it table and note our observations. Now this table is known as multiplication table or Cayley table. So what this table says is, I will apply this whatever is in the first column first, and then first row first, and then I will apply whatever is in the second row. So I apply I, and then I apply I get the step I. Similarly, I can apply sigma tau and then sigma square, and I will get tau. Now you can try out this. Just apply tau, then sigma, and then sigma square. You will see that you get tau. So similarly, for all the others, you can try it, and you will see this. You will get something like this. And interesting part is, first of all, if I take this step and maybe this step, I get sigma square, and that sigma square is definite. I mean, if I carry out here and if you carry out at Delhi or any other place or any other time, you'll always get sigma square. Obviously, the definition should be right. You may call it sigma here, and you may call it some name in other place, but it is definite. So the first observation was this, and the second observation is, if I take this tau or maybe any other element, I'm just taking tau, and if I take maybe sigma tau and I compose them, I get sigma, and which is already listed in G. And this is obvious because we already know that these are all the permutations, so there can't be more. There has to be somewhere in G. So composition of two elements, composition of two steps, I get another step in G. Another thing, there is some element like this, I. If I compose this with any other element, I get the same element. Now, why is this? Because I is basically doing nothing. Similarly for this I also. So this is our third observation. Now, fourth observation is, if I carry out maybe sigma square, then I can reverse this action or reverse this step. If I apply sigma square to our original configuration, and then if I apply sigma, then I get the initial configuration. That is, we can reverse this, and I can reverse this with something that is already listed in G. Because sigma is listed in G, we have already listed. So these were our four observations that we made from this G. Let's write them. So yeah, composition is definite. Composition of two steps is definite. Composition of two elements is again an element in G. And composition of identity. Identity here means I. Basically, it does nothing. With other elements is that element itself. And not only this, there is another one, that is all the actions, all the steps are reversible. So these were our deductions from the experiment of rearranging three balls. So these four, along with another rule that I will state, makes what is known as groups. So instead of giving long rules, we give a name to each rule so that it becomes compact. So firstly, we have the closure rule. What it says is, if I take an element in G and if I take another element in G, I compose them or I associate them and I get another element which is already listed in G. So this is our first rule. What is our second rule? The associativity is our second rule. This is the rule that I missed in the previous observation because it's a bit difficult to see in the structure, but this rule is very trivial. It just says that if I apply B compose C first, and if I then apply A, then it's same as applying C first, then applying A compose. You can just see that if I apply sigma tau, then I apply sigma, it's same as applying tau first, then applying sigma square. So it's that experiment is also that G that we have listed also follows associativity. Now the third rule is existence of identity. Now it says that there is an element E such that if I compose it with another element, I get back the same element. And it doesn't matter in which order we are applying. If I apply A first, then E, it also gives A. So this is our existence of identity. And the fourth rule is existence of inverse. So there is some element like this A inverse, which we compose with some element and another element in G. Then I get identity or basically doing nothing. So it reverses the process we have taken. All these four rules construct what is known as group. Now look at one thing. I have missed a rule that we have listed in the previous observation, that is definite. The rule of definite I have missed here. Now basically this definiteness is not a property of group. Actually this is a property of this thing. Now this thing needn't be a composition. It can be anything, any operation or any binary operation. Basically, what is binary operation? It just says that it is a some way of associating two numbers or two steps or two actions and get a third action or third step or third number, and that third number should be distinct and should be definite. I mean, if I add 1 plus 2, I always get 3. We can't get 4 or 5. So it should be distinct and definite. So basically, group is now constitutes of two things, that is the set that we have already seen, and a binary operation. Now this tuple together is known as group. So now we have constructed our group. Now this all these rules seems a little bit difficult. So we'll try to look at this in a little bit different way. So now let's move on to numbers, because we always like numbers because it's a little bit easier to handle than those steps. So I take integers and addition. This forms a group, right? I add two integer and I get another integer, hence it follows closure. And addition always follows associativity. You already know that. And if I, for example, if I take 1, I add 2 to it, I get 3. Now, if I want to get back to 1, what I do, I subtract 2. So basically, what we are doing, I am adding -2, and -2 is already listed in Z. So the action is reversible. Similarly, there is something called identity. Now, if I add 0 to 1, I get 1 itself. And if I add 1 to 0, I also get 1. So, and 0 is already listed in Z. So integers and the addition is it. Oh, that's more. Yeah. So not only integers, we can have the same for rational numbers, we can have the same for real numbers, and similarly for complex numbers. However, now look at irrational number. Let's check these properties. So I take 1 plus root 2 and I take 1 minus root 2. I add them. I get 2. But 2 is not an irrational number. So irrational number doesn't form a group. Now moving away from this, I will try not to discuss this anymore and I will try to draw groups. So I again move back to the second experiment that we did with triangle with 3 level nodes. What I do is I again rotate this 120 degree and I keep this configuration here. And this blue arrow denotes rotation. It goes here. It is a directed arrow because it shows from which configuration to which configuration we are going after applying a rotation. Now I rotate this thing again. Now it transforms to a different configuration where 3 is at the top, 1 is at the left, 2 is at the right. So basically we are rotating this to get this. Now I rotate this thing again and I get back to the original position. Now what I will do, I will reflect this about this axis, about 1. Basically, I will flip this. So I flip it and I keep it here. And now I do this thing, this rotation, same for others. I rotate this, I get this, I rotate this, I get this, and similarly. And now look at this. If I flip this triangle, the 1 goes here and 2 goes here. So I get this thing. So I am denoting the flipping through red arrows and rotation by blue arrows. So just check it. If I flip this, the 3 goes here and 1 goes here, 2 remains same. Similarly for this, now we have constructed some structure like this. So now let's check that these steps form a group. Why this form a group? Let's first remove those triangles. It's a bit odd. So, and I am labeling this with E, R, F, and R. E, F, and R. So, what does rotation mean? Rotation mean that I am applying R to it, and flipping means I am applying F to it. Now, check this thing. First of all, if I take any two number and apply them to each other, then I get another number that is already in. So this is closed, and also it's associative. You can just check it. It's associative. All the actions are reversible. If I go from here to here, I can go from here to here to get back to the original. So it's reversible. And also there is an element which does nothing. So it follows all the properties, and hence it forms a group. Now this is a group which is known as D3, and this diagram is is used to denote groups and known as Cayley diagram. Let's now look at some more Cayley diagrams. Just see this. This is a Cayley diagram of S4. Now, what is S4? S4 is the permutation group of 4 elements. In one of the previous slide, we took 3 balls and rearranged them. So instead of 3 balls, if we would have taken 4 balls, then we would have got Cayley diagram like this. And this is the dihedral group of 4. Just like we did it for the triangle, we can do the same for square. Just rotate it and flip it about its axis, and I will get some kind of this kind of diagram. And this is Z5 that I am going to discuss in a bit. It is known as the cyclic group of order 5, and I will be discussing about this in one of the slides. Next. So now we have an n-sided polygon, and I am labeling one of the vertex with a yellow dot. Now what we do is I rotate this n-gun by 2 pi by n radian, so that it seems the yellow dot has moved to the next vertex. Now I carry out this again and again and again till I get this position. And if I rotate this by 2 pi by n degree again, I get back here. So basically what we are doing, we are carrying out these steps. We have E here. I am applying R. R means rotation again. And we are going on, and we are getting R to the power n minus 1. Basically, we are applying R n minus 1 times. If I apply R n times, then basically we are going through a rotation of 2 pi degree. That is, we get back to the initial configuration. So this forms what is known as the cyclic group of order n. We saw a simplified version in the previous slide, where instead of n-gon, if you would have taken pentagon, then we would have got the simplified version that we have seen in previous slide. So cyclic groups are very important groups and helps us to study many properties. Now, just like we have subsets for sets, we have something called subgroups for groups. Now, subsets of sets, what does that mean? I have a set inside a set. So what does subgroup should mean? It means that a group is inside a group. So first, let us take this D3 that we have already seen. There we have seen a straight lines. Instead of this, we have circular lines. Doesn't matter. So this is D3. Now look at this thing only. Only this thing. This is nothing but Z3. Why? If you would have taken triangle and just rotated, if I would have just rotated that, I would have got this thing with 3 vertex. So basically, this is a group by its own right, and it's inside D3. So basically, this Z3 is a subgroup of D3. This is a subgroup of this, and we often denote this by this greater than sign, just to avoid confusion with subgroups, subsets. So there may be more subgroups of this. Example, this is again a subgroup. There can be more subgroups. This is another subgroup. Another thing you can look at this, the number of nodes here is 6. Number of nodes there is 3. So 3 divides 6. So this is not a coincidence, and it is one of the famous theorem of group theory known as Lagrange's theorem. That is, the number of nodes in the subgroup divides the number of nodes in the group. Now let's see some more groups. So I have Z3 here and Z2 here. So, oh, sorry, I missed those arrows here. Just think there are some arrows here. Actually, there should be arrows. But here it doesn't need arrow, because if we applied X, I get X. And if I apply X again, I get back 2E. Now, what is Z2? Z2 is basically, instead of n-gon, if I would have taken 2-gon, and 2-gon is just nothing. Actually, I'm taking a line and I'm rotating it, label vertices. So after 2 rotations, get back to the is I have 2 nodes, E and X. So now what I will do, I will write this Z3 in a linear fashion, something like this. Now I will copy this Z2 in all the nodes of Z3. So first of all, I put them, yeah, and I get something like this. Now I will copy those arrows also. I copy those arrows, and now I remove those ovals there, and I get something known as Z2 cross Z3. So what is Z2 cross Z3? Z2 cross Z3, if I consider Z3 as a set and Z2 as a set, if we just take the set part, then we take the Cartesian product of them, and we try to define some type of binary operation so that it becomes a group. Now, what is the binary operation here? It is the binary operation for the, basically, a Cartesian product contains 2 things, right? A from the first group and B from the second group. So we apply the binary operation in the first group here, something maybe start, and from the second group here, B plus. So, and we get something, a group known as Z2 cross Z3. Here also you can see that it is closed, and all the other properties are also followed. It's not one thing I forgot to write this. Actually, this should be E comma E, and here it should be X comma E. Because they are all elements of this Cartesian product. So similarly, there should be brackets here also. Here also. These also form a group, and this is known as the direct product of 2 groups. You can just think we are this is some sort of multiplication in groups, although it is not. This is known as direct product of. So this was direct product. Now we'll see isomorphic groups. So just look at these 2 Cayley diagrams. These 2 look same, exactly same. But if I say that this is the Cayley diagram of S3 and if this is the Cayley diagram of D3, then I'm not wrong. Because it can be, right? If I draw the Cayley diagram of S3, we'll see that it looks like this only. But one thing you can note, that this node or this node, maybe this node would be sigma tau sigma here, and here it would be FR square, I guess. So these 2 nodes differ. But actually this is same, because FR square is same as RF. If I apply R twice, And then if I apply F, whatever we get, we'll get the same thing if I apply F first and then if I apply R. So basically we are renaming it. I'm sorry, this should be, this should be F R. So basically we are renaming tau as F and we are renaming sigma as R. If we just rename this with this thing, I get the same thing as D3. So basically, if we study the properties of D3, I get to know the properties of S3. This is just same as that congruency of triangles. If I have two congruent triangles, if I know this side, then I know this side also because they are congruent. So just by knowing the properties of this triangle, I know the properties of this triangle. So we study this group and we get to know about this group. And similarly, we study this group and I get to know about this group. It helps a lot. So we write this as the same congruent sign and it's written as S3 congruent to D3. Now let us look at some more isomorphic groups. Now again these two look same. However, the first one is the group of symmetries of a cube that we already saw in the second slide where we rotated the cube in different manner. And this is the permutation group of 4 elements that we saw as an example of the Cayley diagram. But they are isomorphic. So if we study the rearrangements of 4 balls, we can study the symmetries of a cube. So rearrangement of 4 balls is, I think, a bit easier instead of studying the symmetries of a cube. So if we study just this, I will get to know about this. So this gives a knowledge about Moore and groups just by knowing some specific groups. So these were isomorphic groups. Now let us look at some different kind of group known as free group. So in all the previous slide, we have seen steps or actions and all of them are constrained. What I mean by constraint is, for example, for sigma, if I apply sigma thrice, I would have got back to identity. Similarly, if I have applied r thrice, that is rotation for the triangle one, I get again have to get back to original position. So all are constant. I mean, they are somehow after some steps, it returns to the original position. Similarly for tau also and for f also. So they all kind of return the same one. So now we'll try to do something different. Now we take 2 steps and that 2 steps are not constrained. So now I apply, for example, I have this point and I apply B here, I get to here, and I apply A here, I get to here. Now here I again can apply B, I can again apply A, I can again apply B, again A, here also same. Sorry. I can apply A, I can apply B, and from here also I can apply, maybe there should be a point in order to make a group, and I apply B and I get back to identity. Here also there is a point, there should be because reversible actions, and I apply some A and I get back to here, and also here also something. This thing repeats. So we get an interesting pattern, something like this. Just check here. I have applied A here. I get to here. I apply B. Again, I apply A, and this continues. If I zoom here, I can again see the same thing, and this goes on. If I zoom here, again see the same thing, and this goes on. So these are free groups, and this is the Kelly diagram of free groups. Let's try to show it. So this instead of colored nodes, we just have white nodes. Try to color them, but some of that white. So I zoom into here, I get back to the same one. I again zoom into the middle part, I get back to the same thing. Again I zoom here. Now again I zoom here. We are continuing this pattern and again and again and again. So this is something known as fractal. The pattern continues. More we zoom in, we again get back to the same position and this continues. So that's all. This is my references. So I followed this book by Nathan Carter. It's a nice book. So also Danasi Ernst also wrote a book. But after some time, this book get back to original definition, and it's maybe a bit difficult. But this follows a visual pattern. So I use this group explorer. I will try to show this after this. And this is a nice theorem. You can look at this. The interesting part is that this theorem was discovered by a cartoon show director. So the cartoon show was named Futurama, and in an episode called Prison of Benda, I think, two characters actually switch their minds through a special machine. Uh, Now the problem was once they switch their minds, they can't go back to their original. So what they did is they brought other persons as volunteers so that they can switch brains with others, and ultimately everyone gets back their own brain. So here there is a use of permutation, and this theorem proves that regardless of how many mind switches between two bodies have been made, they can still be restored to their original bodies using only two extra people, provided these two extra people have not had any mind switches. And actually, this can be uh, proved using permutation, and using group theory, it becomes elegant. The proof becomes elegant. So you can look at this. It is a nice theory. In fact, Math Lodger, I think, has a video on it. So now I will try to show you some nice Kelly diagrams. See. In the meantime, you can ask questions if you want. It's visible now. So yeah, there are different groups. The cyclic groups, S3 group. So let's see the S3 group Kelly diagram. This is the S3 group Kelly diagram. Looks a bit nice in 3D. Just look at this. There is E here. They have, instead of using sigma and tau, they have used F and R. So here there is E. They apply R and they apply R square. Similarly, they apply F. See, they have not used any arrow here because applying tau or applying F is Same if we apply from here to here and from here to there. So there also they have applied F, RF, FR, that is sigma, sigma tau, tau sigma. There are more, I think. There's some fantastic patterns here. See this Z3 cos Z3. Mm. They've taken that whole oval and kept that Z3 here, and they have just copied these arrows. And now it looks like this. This has 9 elements. Yeah, there are some nice things. This is the A4 group, and this I have not said actually. This is actually the symmetries of an what was that? Tetrahedron, I think, yeah. If we count the symmetries of tetrahedron, try to form a group through it, it will form something like this. If you get to more complex, if you take instead of tetrahedron, if you take icosahedron, then you will get A5 like this. There's so many subgroups. This is D9. We take a nine god, polygon with 9 sides. Can make this group. Basically, what we are doing is yeah. So we are taking E, we are applying R, R square, R cube, R to the power 4. Yeah, we have F, R cube, F. More and more are there. Square F, square. Instead of triangle, they have taken a 9 god. Show you. This is I have already shown S4. Just check this. How can I form this? This is the cube. This is the cube with diagonals. Now we can rotate this and I can get 24 different configurations from the initial configuration. Just by rotating this about x-axis, y-axis, z-axis, I get 4 3 z 12 configuration, and I can flip it through this triangle. This take this one, and this one, and I flip it. These two moves here and these two moves there. I can do this 2 times for each one. So 12 2s are 24. I get 24 different. Yeah, this is an icosahedron. And this forms A5. There are more and more. You can just look into it. Group Explorer. Just search it in Google. I think you'll get it. That's all, I guess, if you want to ask questions. Anyone?
Yeah, okay. So I had a small question.
Yeah.
You have said that there's these certain conditions that have to be satisfied so that we form groups.
Yeah.
But what if we don't have a specific condition?
Yeah, then we'll not get group. We'll get some different structure, different algebraic structure. There are different other structures which doesn't form group, and they follow certain, instead of following all those 5 rules, they follow maybe 3 or 2 rules. And there are many other structures like monoids and many like
Yes.
that.
So my question is, why not study monoids? Why study groups which has more properties? So why not generalize it?
Yeah, because sometimes we have actually groups are more generalized. There are some more abstract like fields and rings, which have more properties than groups. But groups are already very generalized. So I think that's it.
Yeah.
That's only I don't know about it anymore. I have not studied monoids and groups something.
Okay. Okay. All right. So does anybody else have a question?
I don't have a question, but I have a suggestion to ISI students.
Yes, sir.
So I'm no longer at ISI, and I'm very happy that you people doing this. So what are the topics you have studied so far? You have lectured on. I came to know of it much later.
Yes, we have done a few talks. Like this is the 11th talk, so there has been. So I had given a talk on the topology, relation between topology and analysis. There was a talk on irrationality of pi. There was something on graph theory. Then they were quite a diverse set. So there was one talk on statistical analysis. There was one on handwriting
Okay.
recognition.
So
And
I have a suggestion. You know, there is something that is extremely, which will prove to be very important, and there is a very nice book also. Is the field of periodic real numbers.
yes, okay.
Okay, and there is a book. I have this book here, very small book. Huh? Saraswati will have it. It is Katok, Svetlana Katok. Okay, so you people may consider going through this, and it is an extremely important branch of. I mean, it is very, very much used in number theory and such. And it is just like from rational you do real numbers by doing the completion. Huh? So you may have read that. So here also there is a different distinct notion, what is called periodic norms on rationals. And then you do the same completion and you get periodic analysis. You get another complete metric space like a real line. And this is extremely useful in number theory and particularly. So maybe some of you can take up this. হ্যাঁ
Yeah, sure, sir.
সুপ্রভাত তুমি কি পড়েছো?
হ্যাঁ স্যার, এটা আমাদের কোর্সে হয়েছিল 20 থেকে।
তোমাদের কোর্সে হয়েছিল, কে পড়িয়েছিল?
এই একজন ম্যাডাম ছিলেন, একতা ম্যাডাম।
Analysis, you can do analysis here. It's almost like that, and it comes out quite useful. Okay, so I will suggest that some of you take it up.
Yes, sir, sure.
I'm not very sure Nina is here in this audience. Whether Nina is periodic things are taught nowadays.
Yeah, it is taught in algebraic number theory.
In algebraic number theory, huh? But it is just analysis, and in the beginning,
Yes.
they can easily read. Huh?
Yes, yes.
Because after all,
There's
even Galois theory, everything that they are reading is taught. Hmm.
Mhm.
So that is not a thing. Huh? And this is something students can learn themselves very easily. Hmm. So that's all. I didn't have much question.
I think we can conclude today, Taru.
Okay, if there are no more questions, thank you for your great talk, Sanchayan.
Thank you to you also for allowing me to present.
So when you organize this periodic analysis, maybe I should be informed.
Yes, sir. I'll drop you a mail.
Not all topics I may, but I will be. Arnab, acho tumi? Arnab? Arnab is not here. Anyway. So keep send me information. I mean, I may not be able to attend all talks, the other work and such, but
Okay, sir.
Mrinal Nandi, who is Mrinal Nandi? Midul Nandi, Mrinal Nandi. Is it the brother of Midul Nandi? Mrinal Nandi, is he a student?
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Your student.
No, are you a student? Are you Midul Nandi Dada?
Yeah, yes, sir.
তুমি জয়েন করেছো, ছবি করে তোমার মুখ দেখি, ক্যামেরা খোলো।
একটু ওয়েট করুন স্যার।
হ্যাঁ, তুমি তো ভালো আছো?
হ্যাঁ স্যার, ভালো আছি স্যার।
হ্যাঁ, আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, ভেরি নাইস। আই ওয়াজ নট এক্সপেক্টিং ইউ হিয়ার। ও, Rahul Majumdar, I used to know one Rahul, B.S. Majumdar's son, but I don't know whether he is not. This is not B.S. Majumdar's son. তো তোমার ইউনিভার্সিটির ছাত্ররা অ্যাটেন্ড করছে এই টকগুলো, মৃণাল?
না স্যার।
ও, তো তুমি কেন করছো?
অর্ণব বললো স্যার, দেখতে পাচ্ছেন এবার?
হ্যাঁ, এবার দেখতে পাচ্ছি। হ্যাঁ,
সেদিনও করেছি।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, বাহ, অনেকদিন। তোমার চেহারা পাল্টে গেছে। হ্যাঁ, অনেক চেহারা পাল্টে গেছে
অনেকটা।
তুমি ওই ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গল ইউনিভার্সিটিতে আছো তো? ওই
হ্যাঁ, ওখানে আছি। হ্যাঁ।
Good. So younger people, I think those who are in MMath, they will get this course. But in any case, whatever you are reading and everything is taught. It's not that you are teaching, learning something which will not be eventually taught. This is I really value this book a lot.
Yes, sir,
I
sure.
value this book a lot. And try to learn my subject also.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. So thank you, everybody. So our next talk will be on Saturday. It will be revisiting group theory from a perspective of Galois theory, and hope to see you there.
Okay.